What's good, guys? Fantasy Joe back with my week 3 buy low, sell highs. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you want to bring that fantasy championship home this year. It's an absolute must. I post my weekly takeaways on Monday mornings every week. I also post my rankings, I post my waiver wire video on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we've got the rankings reveal in the morning, and then in the afternoon, right now, Wednesday afternoon, I release my weekly buy lows, sell highs. All that stuff comes out every single week. All the information you need to keep you up to date, give you that edge over everyone else in your league, and make those trades that are going to push you over the top. Alrighty, let's dive in with my sell highs. We're going to start here. I don't have nearly as many. My number one sell high, though, it's J.K. Dobbins. And we're going to talk about why. The main reason being, I think J.K. Dobbins is the number one sell high. He's currently the RB4. He's been absolutely fantastic for fantasy football. 10 carries in week one, definitely outperformed that utilization, but that is a good sign. Obviously, you want efficient players. The next week, a lot more carries, 17 for 131. My main reasons I'm fading J.K. and willing to move on from him, when he's being a top 5 running back right now, the haul that you can receive for a player like this is so tremendous. With him coming off that Achilles injury last year, I worry about a situation similar to a James Robinson a few years ago. Coming off an Achilles injury that next year started extremely hot, and then after about the first 5 weeks of the season, he's faded off an absolute ton. Now, I do think J.K. is a very talented player, but I just worry about his heavy utilization and his heavy efficiency continuing throughout this season. They've got other backs there, and I think when J.K.'s production drops off, they'll move to Gus Edwards, a Kamani Vidal, one of these other pieces in this backfield, and they're going to start to rely on other pieces. And I think you can just get an absolute haul for him right now. That's a big part of it as well. When you're selling high on somebody, it's because you can receive a ton of value. I think he is an excellent sell high. I'd be trying to move him for one of these major pieces we're about to talk for in a minute on my sells. Or on my buy lows, excuse me. One more of our sell highs. This one, I really like James Cook. I think he's a top 10 running back rest of season. The reason he's on here, he just had that 3-touchdown game, was absolutely tremendous. He had 2 rushing touchdowns this last game. To put that in perspective, he had 2 rushing touchdowns all of last season. That's why he was a league winner for me this year, because of that positive touchdowns regression that he was due to have based off his utilization, his efficiency in past years. He's an extremely efficient back. He's the guy in this team. He gets a ton of work. I expect close to 20 touches a week moving forward, and I think this is a really good offense that's going to have to rely on him in both the rushing game and the passing game. We saw him get that goal line carry. That's extremely encouraging. I would only be trading James Cook if I could receive probably top 5 value. If you're receiving top 10 value, like I said, I view him as a top 10 running back. But if you can move him for a major piece, maybe a Saquon Barkley or a Bijan Robinson off of this monster game, that's a move I would look to make. A Breece Hall, I'd put in that conversation as well. But I really like James Cook. It's just the value is extremely high right now, coming off a 3-touchdown game. And he had 6 touchdowns all of last year. So that's just something to put in perspective. Like I said, I think he should have more this year, but he's not the biggest touchdown scorer as far as my projections go with Josh Allen on the goal line. Next sell high is Kyren Williams. He's been pretty solid so far for fantasy this year. You see his usage has been excellent. He's playing a ton of snaps, and he's going to continue to do so. I don't see any of that stuff changing. But my main worry with Kyren is just, obviously, injury risk is high with someone that plays that many snaps, but that, again, playing that many snaps is a good thing in fantasy football. Anyone can get injured. But the main reason that I am concerned is just the offense around him. They've suffered numerous offensive line injuries. Obviously, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, potentially both being on IR. Puka already is. Kupp could be, but we're expecting them both to miss weeks. I think the offense will struggle more so than it would. Obviously, when you're buying Kyren, you were hoping that this was going to be an elite offense and that he'd have a ton of touchdown opportunity like he had last year. Like I said, I still expect him to get a lot of volume moving forward. But again, if I can sell Kyren Williams as a top 8 running back right now and receive one of these other players we're about to talk about, and maybe move Kyren into, a Bijan Robinson, even a James Cook. I'd rather have James Cook rest of the season than Kyren. That's not a massive upgrade to me, but I think there's moves that can be made out there. Moving on to our buy lows, the exciting part. My number one buy low this week is not even that close to me. I have a few I'm really excited about, but my number one is Jamar Chase. He plays the Washington Commanders this week. You're not going to have another opportunity to buy him this low. He's a wide receiver 42 right now, receiving 6 and 5 targets only in these last 2 games. I think a lot of that has just been due to the absences in training camp, him coming back, and their offense just struggling a little bit in that first game. Burrow looked a lot better against Kansas City. Jamar got frustrated at the end of the game. Expect the ball to come to him a lot. He can have those explosive games. Don't mind 2 down games. Jamar Chase is essential to his offense functioning. And now is the only, like I said, I think one of your last opportunities to go out and buy. If he struggles against Washington, you'll have another opportunity, but it's about as good of a matchup as you can possibly get in the NFL for a wide receiver. I expect him and Burrow to have really big games. I think Jamar Chase is a league winner if you could trade for him right now. I expect him to have a ton of targets rest of season, and he's a fantastic player. He's still locked and loaded top 5 to me. I have him number 2 on my weekly rankings. Let's bring up our next player on my buy lows. It's Tank Dell. Now, Dell this last week had the pass bounce off of his hands. Would have been a touchdown. His whole week looks different. Only 4 targets. That is concerning. I'm not going to lie. But I think that's why it's such a good buy low opportunity. I was thinking about this. I would compare him very well to Devonta Smith from a talent perspective. I think he's as good of a receiver as he is. And I think Devonta is an absolute stud. But if I had the opportunity to buy low on a Devonta Smith right now, I would absolutely do it. And it wouldn't change my perspective that A.J. Brown had 2 monster games before. And that's what Nico Collins has done. Nico Collins is the one on this team. But you can acquire Tank Dell for very little right now. He was discounted draft season coming in. This is a trade that you can make for very little, I believe. And I think it would be a massive move for your team rest of the season. I still view him as a top 20 wide receiver and think that this offense is going to be extremely good for fantasy. We've seen Stephon Diggs slow down a lot over the second half of seasons. And I think 2 of those 3 wide receivers are going to have a good game just about every week. And I think Tank can do it. I think the perspective on him would be a lot different if he made 1 catch. And when stuff like that happens, you need to be able to capitalize off of people's perceptions. Moving on, this is one of my biggest buy lows. It's Brandon Aiyuk. He struggled so far, and they're a guy that sat out a lot of camp. The numbers aren't great, but 5 targets each week. That number is going to jump up dramatically with the injury to Deebo Samuel. He's an excellent receiver. We saw extreme efficiency from him last year, demonstrating his connection with Brock Purdy as well as his talent, averaging ridiculous yards per route run, yards per reception, and just having a fantastic season. He's a guy I think you can go out and acquire him, Tank Dell, a lot of these guys for so little right now, and I am very confident in them moving forward. I think for a Brandon Aiyuk, you could trade, like I said in one of my other leagues, I think Jerome Ford for Tank Dell. I think that's a trade that could get done in a lot of leagues, or a player similar to that caliber. There's a lot of moves that can be made. And then let me pull up a rest of season rankings, because I want to be giving you guys more names of players that I would be trading for these players. I think that's something that's helpful. And I like utilizing the rest of season ranking just because it gives me an idea of where the market is currently at. So let's go to some wide receiver names, and I'll give you some players that I would be trading actively for these other guys. So if I had a Chris Godwin right now, I'd be selling high on Chris Godwin, seeing if I could get Brandon Aiyuk. I think Chris Godwin has good rest of season prospects. I just think Brandon Aiyuk is a different tier of talent level, and the quarterback connection is better there. And like I said, he should be the number 1 target moving forward. Drake London, if I could trade Drake London and get Brandon Aiyuk, I would absolutely do that. Zay Flowers, same thing. I think you could take a Zay Flowers trade for a Brandon Aiyuk, or even if I had to package players, I'd be willing to do that. But yeah, these are all players I'd be willing to trade up for. And you see where Tank Dell is, how low he is. If I could take a Terry McLaurin and a piece and get Tank Dell, I'd do that all day. Another player I was going to bring up, Amari Cooper. Cooper has struggled this year. I still think that offense just needs him. 9 targets, 8 targets. He's going to get it going. He's had some crucial drops that would have changed his fantasy days. Again, when you can dial down someone's entire production being so low to 1 or 2 missed plays, and in these early weeks, it's a massive opportunity for you to be able to get out there and strike on some of these guys. But I think both Jamar Chase, Tank Dell, and Aiyuk are all massive buy lows. I put Amari Cooper in that next tier of player. And then another guy I wanted to talk about with my buy lows, Travis Kelce right now is an absolute buy low to me. He's playing a lot of snaps for his team. I don't expect him to play that many snaps each and every week. He's had a few plays, though, knocked away by penalty that have been big. Just little things like that, and I think Kelce still has a lot more than people realize right now, and I think people are panicking, thinking he's lost it, and I think now is a good opportunity to go buy low on him. A guy that I don't think it would be take a crazy ton to get. If you're willing to trade a mediocre wide receiver or mediocre running back, I think you can get him. Like I think you could take a Brian Robinson and package him with someone and get Travis Kelce right now if you need tight end help. I'd absolutely do that. Another player that I wanted to talk about as a buy low. Let's move over to Mr. Excuse me. Here we go. Mr. Christian Watson for the Green Bay Packers. Now, this one's a bit of a wait and see. You could wait 1 or 2 more weeks on this one because until Jordan Love comes back, I'm not very excited about him. But whenever Christian Watson's been on the field with a good quarterback, he scored a ton of fantasy points, 0 targets this last week. The Green Bay Packers only threw the ball like 12 times. They run the ball just about every play with Malik Willis with his first start on this team with about 2 weeks of preparation. But this is another guy. You can go out, you can trade nothing, and you can acquire Christian Watson. I think he's going to have very good prospects whenever Jordan Love is back. Jordan Love practiced today on a Wednesday. That's a massive sign to me that he might be back sooner than people expect. That's why Watson's in this video and not the next one. But I think he's an excellent go out there and buy player. One other guy I want to talk about is a massive buy to me on the tight end position. This one's not really a buy low, but he's still a buy. It's Brock Bowers. Up until recently, I saw him ranked as the number 8th overall tight end in some rest of season rankings. I'd have a hard time not putting him in my top 3. We'll look at his, or no, yes, 8 targets, 9 targets, and he had 58 and 98 yards in his first 2 games. He's one of the top 2 targets there with him and Devontae Adams, and they funnel those 2 guys' targets. I expect him to have close to 8 targets or more just about every week, and that's going to be successful for fantasy football. He was an absolute star in college, shining as a freshman at just 18 years old in the SEC, dominating, leading that Georgia team for 3 years in a row in all their receiving stats, and I expect him to continue to dominate in the NFL. And he's a guy I'd not be afraid to give up major assets to go out there and acquire. Another guy I'll throw out there. This goes on the Travis Kelce thing I was talking about. With Pacheco's injury, I expect the Chiefs to throw a lot more. That's part of the reason I'm a buy on Kelce. Mahomes run the ball less than 30 times in both of these games, less than 28 or less in both games. And I expect that to go up dramatically, just even if Pacheco wasn't injured. And now that you add in he is, I expect those numbers to jump up. When you get more pass attempts, it's going to be good for guys like Rice, good for Kelce, and good for Xaiver Worthy. I think he's another guy you go out there and see if you can acquire. With the injury news of Marquise Brown missing the entire season, I expect them to have to get him more and more involved, and I expect those target numbers to go up and up. I think now is one of the last opportunities you'll have to go out and buy him, which is how explosive he is. He's a guy who could get 5 targets a game, and you can still throw him in your flex with his Chiefs offense, his explosiveness, and that involvement. Alrighty, if you guys have made it to this point in the video, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you have any questions or comments, any trade advice questions, you can drop them in the comment section down below. Trade ideas, should I do this trade? And I'll respond to all comments as always. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is Fantasy Joe. I'll see you guys.